Kakalosh Boker Tov, Shavuot Tov. We are continuing on Daf Kavbet Amud Aleph 21a1. However, though, we're going to just start on the last lines of 21b, Kaf Aleph Amud Bet on the bottom. Okay, where it says, if you remember, the Gemara was trying to come and trying to answer, right? That he says over here there was a machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so it says Bishlema Rabbi Meir. It's good according to Rabbi Meir. Damar echad ger ve'echad nochri. Whether it's talking about a ger or a nochri. Remember, here we're talking about a ger toshav, which means not a convert, but rather a person that's living in the land of Israel that he accepted upon himself the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, and the goy. So he said, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, you could whether sell it or give it as a present. Midid zikra, from the fact that the pasuk needed a pasuk to permit nevela ba'ana'a, a nevela in order to benefit from it. So all other isurin in the Torah, they learn it from lo tochelu, which means asurim b'machila b'ma'ina, which means they're always prohibited whether it's an achila or na, which means the second that it says the word lo tochelu, don't eat it, it means don't eat it and don't benefit from it. That's what the Gemara is saying according to Shitat Rabbi Meir. So when it says don't eat, don't benefit, same thing. According to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, that he says that it's coming to teach you exactly that which is written, which means that it's asur to sell to the nevela, to the ger toshav, or you're not allowed to give it as a present to a nochri, to a goy. Meaning, to the goy, you have to sell it. You're not allowed to give it as a present. And to the ger toshav, you have to...
Not to the heathen.
Which one?
Is a heathen goy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, to the goy, you have to sell it. You're not allowed to give it as a present. And to the ger toshav, you have to give it as a present. You're not allowed to sell it. That's the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. So, kol yisurim sheba Torah, all the other yisurim b'Torah that you're not allowed to, that's written lo tochelu, how do you know that it's a sur banaha? So he says, nafkalei, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, he learns it out from lakelev tashlichun oto, which means you're only allowed to throw to the dog the terefa. Oto, lakelev, to the dogs, tashlichun oto, you're allowed to throw it. What is it referring to? Which means you're only allowed to benefit from the terefa. Remember, a terefa is an animal which basically has certain defects in the animal that it's going to die within the year. So therefore, if you do shechita to such an animal, it's not kosher. Okay, so it says over here, Oto atamashich lekelev, v'atamashich kelev, kol yisurim shebatorah. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir. Yeah, we're on Kavbet Amud Aleph 22a. Rabbi Meir, and according to Rabbi Meir, Oto atamashlich lekelev, v'atamashlich lekelev, chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. What is the word oto referring to? According to Rabbi Meir, oto is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said oto was teaching you that only a terefa you could benefit from. If it's not a terefa, any other yisurin sheba Torah, you're not allowed to benefit from it. So you learn it from the word oto, only it. Okay. However, though, according to Rabbi Meir, what do you learn from it? Says Rabbi Meir, no. Oto atamashlich lekelev, v'atamashlich lekelev chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. You could only throw to it, to the dog, right? This, it says over here, only everything else like terefa, but not chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. That means if you took chulin, and chulin is not consecrated food, not holy food, and you did shechita to the chulin in the azara, so it's asur bana, right? So since it's asur bana, that's why you're not allowed to throw to the dog. Meaning you took a regular piece of a regular cow, regular meat, right? A regular cow, you took it to the Bet HaMikdash and you did shechita. Since it wasn't a korban, you're not allowed to benefit from it. What are you doing that in the Bet HaMikdash? It's prohibited. So because of that, you're not allowed to benefit from it. So therefore it says you could only throw to the dog terefa, not chulin shenishchatu b'azara, not chulin which was slaughtered in the azara. The idach and the other mandamar, Rabbi Yehuda, chulin shenishchata b'azara, lav doraitahi. He says no. For him, he says chulin which is nishchat b'azara. It's not doraita. It's the rabbanan. It's only rabbinical. Meaning the fact that it's going to become prohibited and benefiting from it, it's only rabbinical. It's not doraita. So since it's only rabbinical, it's not. Yeah, you're not allowed to eat it, but you're allowed to benefit from it. So the fact that you're allowed to benefit from it, mina Torah, that's why they said it's permitted, and therefore you didn't need it from the pasuk. Meaning it's not like you have to learn a pasuk from it. Okay, so Mativ Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. So Rav Yitzchak Nafcha comes and he asks the following question: Vare gidan ashe, you have gidan ashe. The Rahman Amar that the Torah says al ken lo yuchulu bnei Yisrael gidan ashe. That's why you're not going to eat the gidan ashe. Utranan we learned right in the Mishnah in Chulin. Sholeach adam yarech lenochri v'gidan ashe b'tocho. So you're allowed to come and take the yerech, which is the thigh, which the gid nashe is inside these sinus, the prohibited sinus are inside this yerech, and you're allowed to send it to the goy. Okay, now what's going to happen? He's going to eat it. Why? Because he says, since it's recognizable, where exactly is this this gid nashe, so therefore he has to know it. So therefore, that's why now the gid nashe, you're allowed to, it's mutar bana, you're allowed to benefit from it. That means even though it says over there, lo yochelu, right? So again, one more time, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he says lo yochelu. Lo yochelu means you cannot eat. Now, what's happening is we are asking if it says lo yochelu and we're not allowed to benefit, so therefore, why are you allowed to give it over? So it says because since it's mekomonikar, that's why it's going to be permitted. So therefore, he says over here, Gidan Hashem is mutar bana, and it's also written lo yochelu. So it's a question of Rabbi Yavu. So Kasava Rabbi Yavu actually holds shekshutra nevela hi v'chelba v'gida hutra. The second that they permitted the nevela, remember, a nevela means an animal that was slaughtered without, an animal that died without the proper shechita. That's called the nevela. Terefa means that you did a proper shechita, but it was supposed to die within the year. So it's called a treifa, terefa. Nevela, right, or a nevela means that basically it was not done a proper shechita to it. So that's called the nevela. Not kosher is not kosher. You understand? Many times we come and we say nevelotu trefot. Nevelotu trefot means it's a kosher animal. It's just that it didn't have a proper shechita or it was going to die within the year. That's called nevela ou trefa. Okay? The non-kosher is not kosher. It's a completely different concept. Okay? So Rabbi Yavu comes and he says, when the nevela was permitted in benefiting from it, right? So because we already just said that you're permitted to have benefiting from the nevela and trefa, but you're allowed to throw it to the dogs. So therefore, not only is it permitted, but also it's chelev, the prohibited fats, or the gid nashe was also permitted with it.
Special exception.
Yeah, it's a special exception. So because of that, that's why we say that there's no problem whatsoever of benefiting from this gid nashe. So it says the Gemara, Hani Chalamandamer, this is good only according to the Mandamer that says, Yesh begidim miroten tam, which means that the gid nashe could actually give taste to the food, right? But according to the Mandamar, right, and therefore that's why he permitted it with Hana. But according to the Mandamar, that em begidim miroten tam, it doesn't give any taste in the food. Ma'ikar, remember, what are you going to say? Because according to him, if begidim not part of the nevela, but it's like a piece of wood, so therefore they didn't actually come and they permitted Hana with it. So therefore, why would it be permitted the gid nashe and Hana? If it says lo yochelu, you're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to benefit from it. Okay. One more time. If you're going to tell me then that there's no taste in the sinus, so therefore it's like a piece of wood. If it's like a piece of wood, you cannot permit the benefiting from it, just like you permit the benefiting from the nevela itself. It's another din. It's a piece of wood. So says the Gemara, Man shamat le de'amar em begidin. Who's the one that holds that the gidin did not give over taste? Rabbi Shimon. It's Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya was going to the right. If you eat from the gid nashe of a behemat me'ah, of an impure animal, Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayav two makot. One of them is you ate basar behemat me'ah, you ate from an impure animal. Number two was you ate from the gid nashe. Rabbi Shimon says you're going to be patur from malkut completely. Why? Because basar behemat me'ah, he's poter, because em begidim minoten tam, and it's not considered basar. And because the gid nashe is poter, because the Torah did not prohibit only the gid nashe of a behemat tehorah, not of a behemat me'ah. So it comes out the two extremes of the spectrum. Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayav two different lashes, two groups of lashes of 39. Rabbi Shimon says you're exempt from two lashes of 39. Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayav because of number one, basar tme'ah, impure animal, and number two, gid nashe. According to Rabbi Yehuda, basar behemat me'ah, this is not basar. There's no taste in the gid.
Only when it dries out.
No, because that's what he's saying. The gid, the sinus in itself, even without being dried out, if it doesn't have any taste, it's like already a piece of wood now, even if it's not dry. Okay? So it's not considered a basar behemat me'ah. And also, gid nashe was only permitted from a pure animal, not from an impure animal. So because of that, that's why the two of them, you're going to be completely exempt from lashes. Rabbi Shimon achanami da asar bana. Rabbi Shimon here says that it's a subana. Titania was willing to the right. Gid nashe mutar bana. Right? Rabbi Yehuda says gid nashe is permitted bana, permitted to benefit from it. Rabbi Shimon says it's a sur. So why? Because the word lo yochelu means you're not allowed to eat it. Combines also has in it the prohibition of hana, of benefiting as well. So it says the Gemara, okay, fine. Vare dam. Another question, what about dam? Dam, the Rahman Amar, the Torah says by blood, Kol nefesh mikem lo tochal dam. You're not allowed to eat any blood. Utnana, we learned in the Mishnah Yoma, elu va'elu, which means the leftovers of the bloods, whether we're talking about the inner chataot or the outer chataot, the sin offerings, whether the inner ones or the outer ones, right? They go to the yesod. Remember that the chataat offering, which is the sin offerings, sometimes it was sprinkled the blood on the inside of the echal, and on the inner mizbeach, called mizbeach hapanimi, and sometimes mizbeach hazav, the golden mizbeach, and sometimes it was sprinkled on the outer one. If it was sprinkled on, right, the inner one, it's on the four corners. If it's sprinkled on the outer one, it's going to be sprinkled on matanachat, which means that you sprinkle it once on the corners and it spreads out. So you do once on this side, once on the other side. So it's shte matanosh and arba, two presents which are like four. So it's like two sprinklings which are four. On the chatat pnimit, on the inner chataot, you have to sprinkle on the four corners of the mizbeach. Now, doesn't matter which one's which, you always take the leftover blood to the outer mizbeach, to mizbeach hanachoshet, to the copper one, and you pour the leftovers in the yesod, in the foundation, right, which goes all the way to the bottom. Umitarvim ba'ama, and then it goes through the ama of the water, which is the irrigation canal of water, which was underneath the Bet HaMikdash. So it would go there. And it goes out to Nachal Kidron, to the stream of Kidron. And it's going to be sold to the gardeners, lezevel, as fertilizer. Okay, and if somebody's going to use it without paying the ekdesh, so it's called me'ilah. Me'ilah means you're not allowed to benefit from holy property. So therefore, you see from here that this blood is actually mutar bana. You're allowed to benefit from it, even though it's written lo tochal. I remember one more time. We have to keep on saying this again and again. According to Shitat Rabbi Yavhud, the second that it says lo tochal, lo yochelu, lo tochelu, whatever the connotation, the second it says you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to benefit from it as well. And here we say you are allowed to benefit from it, even though it says you're not allowed to eat the blood. Okay? So it says over here, Shane dam. Dam is going to be different. Why is blood going to be different? He says over here, blood is going to be different. The itkash lemaim, because it had a hekesh, a juxtaposition. It was close proximity to water. The chtiv, as it says in a pasuk, lo tochelenu ala aretz tishpechenu kamaim. What does it mean? You're not allowed to eat it. You have to spill it on the ground like water. Ma mayim mutarin, afdam mutar. Just like water is going to be permitted bana'ah, so too blood is permitted bana'ah. That means just like the water is going to be permitted in benefiting from it, so too the blood you're allowed to benefit from it. So it's a special deen by blood that you're allowed to benefit from it, just like water. Because when it says they're going to throw it on the floor, just like the water. So for just like water is permitted, so too your blood is going to be permitted.
It is an exception. This is another exception.
Another exception. So it says the Gemara, so says the Gemara, if you're already comparing the blood to water, why don't I compare the blood to the water which is on the water libation? Meaning on the Chag, which is Sukkot, we do water libations. So therefore there we're going to do Nisuch HaMayim. There, that water of Nisuch HaMayim is prohibited in benefiting it. So why are you comparing it to regular water that's going to be permitted in benefiting it? It should be like prohibited waters, just like the waters of the Nisuch HaMayim on the Mizbeach. So answers the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yavu, Kamaim. What does it mean, Kamaim, like water? Rov Maim, the majority of water. The majority of water is permitted to drink. It's only the water which goes on the Mizbeach which is prohibited. But other than that, all the majority of water is permitted. So I compare it to the majority of water. So says the Gemara, Midi Rov Kamaim Kativ, is a written majority of water. So says the Gemara, Ravashi comes and he explains it in a different way. No, like water which is poured and not water which is used as a libation, as on the Mizbeach. So because of that, we're comparing it to regular water and not water which is done in like a libation. So says the Gemara, why don't I say it's like water which is poured in front of Avodah Zarah, which is also going to become prohibited in Hana and benefiting, because anything which is done for Avodah Zarah is prohibited in benefiting from it. So answers the Gemara, Hatam Nami, also over there, Nisuch Ikre, it's called Nisuch. So that means also by Avodah Zarah, it's called Nisuch. How do we know it's called Nisuch? How do you call wine which we said you're not allowed to benefit from? Wine of Goyim.
Huh?
Wine of Goyim. How's it called?
Nesech.
Yain Nesech. Very good. Yain Nesech. So therefore, even wine which is poured in front of Avodah Zarah is also called Nisuch Hamayim. Yain Nesech. So because of that, that's why it's not like regular poured water. Tichtiv Yishtu Yen Nesicham. They're going to drink the waters of their Nesech waters. Okay? Kavbet Amud Bet 22b. Ulchizkiah, and according to Chizkiah, that he says that whenever it's written the word achila, it does not include any type of prohibition against the hana'ah, the benefiting from it. Lemay hilchata itkash dam lemayim. So for which halacha was there a kesh, blood with water? Okay, so it says the Gemara, lechdrebchia baraba, like Rebchia baraba. Te'amar Rebchia baraba, Rabbi Yochanan says Rebchia baraba in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Minayin ledam kodshim sheno machshir. How do we know that dam kodshim is not machshir ochlin to receive tumah? How do we know the dam kodshim does not make something susceptible to receive tumah? Remember, foods, in order to become susceptible for tumah, you need one of the 7 liquids, which is yad shachat dam. And part of the yad shachat dam, one of the acronym for the 7 liquids is dam, blood. So yad shachat dam. So this one of the 7 liquids you has to touch it. Now, blood is one of the 7 liquids. So how do we know that any blood of kodshim, which means from the korbanot, does not make a food susceptible for tumah?
I didn't know that.
Well, that's what you just said here. Yeah.
I didn't know that rule.
Oh, okay, fine. So that's what we just said here. Shneimar, as it says in a pasuk, lo tochelenu ala aretz yishpechenu kamayim. You're not allowed to eat it. You have to spill it on the ground like water. Dam shenishpach kamayim machshir. Only regular blood, which is poured on the floor, it's going to make it susceptible for tumah. She'eno nishpach kamayim, but blood which is received in a vessel. Remember that when you do shechita, you receive the blood in a vessel, right? And then that blood, they come and they sprinkle it, whether it's on the outer or the inner mizbeach. So the dam which is not nishpach kamayim, eno machshir, does not make a machshir to the kabel tumah. Okay, so that's what the Gemara answers. So we learn from here that that's why there was a hekesh, dam to mayim, blood to water. Why? To teach you that the blood which is spilled like water is going to make it susceptible for tumah. Blood which is not spilled like water is not make it susceptible for tumah. So that's why there's a hekesh, a special juxtaposition between blood and water, and not to do with that it's going to be permitted like water, because you didn't need this permission. Because remember, according to Chizkiah, whenever it says the word lo tochelu, you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to eat it, but you're allowed to benefit. So if you're allowed to benefit, so why is there a juxtaposition between blood and water? So because of this, to teach you that the blood which is not spilled like water does not make anything susceptible for tumah. So says the Gemara, another question, Rabbi Yavu. Remember, ever minachai. Ever minachai, a limb from a living animal. Tichtiv, it's written, lo tochala nefesh im b'sar. You're not allowed to eat the flesh with the basar, meaning that if the animal is alive, you're not allowed to eat the flesh. Now again, remember, according to Rabbi Yavu, anytime that it says lo tochal, it means you're not allowed to eat, plus you're not allowed to benefit. So the question is, Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Rabbi Natan says, how do we know that you're not allowed to pass a kos yain, a cup of wine to a nazir? Remember that a nazir, a Nazirite, you're not allowed to drink wine. So how do you know that you're not allowed to pass a cup of wine to a nazir? Or ever minachai, a limb from a living animal to Bnei Noach. Bnei Noach, one of the 7 Noahidite laws is also they're not allowed to eat ever minachai. So Tamulomar comes to teach you, there's a concept of lifnei iver. Lifnei iver means don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. Which means if you're going to now come and give wine to an asid and he's going to drink it, that's lifnei iver. What are you putting a stumbling block? It's like you're asking him to sin. You already know he's going to sin. Or if you're going to give ever minachai to a bnei noach, to a goy, you know that he's going to eat it. So therefore, lifnei iver, you're not allowed to do it. Halek lavim, right? But to the dogs, you're permitted to throw it. So now the question is, 1 second, you're benefiting when you give it to the dogs. So therefore, you see from here that every minachai, you're allowed to benefit. I thought you just told me, Rabbi Avu, that whenever it says the word lo tochal means you're not allowed to benefit. You're not allowed to eat, plus you're not allowed to benefit. It includes the benefiting in the eating. So answers the Gemara, you understood the question?
It's another exception.
This is the answer. The answer is another exception. Shane ever minachai, the it kashadam. Again, ever minachai was also juxtaposed to blood. It was also brought in close proximity. Why? Dichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, rak chazak levilti achol adam ki adam hu anafesh. It says here you have to strengthen yourself. Do not eat blood because the blood is considered the nefesh. Meaning, since it says right that you're not allowed, and then it says immediately afterwards, v'lo tochal nefesh im basar, you're not allowed to eat even every minachai. So the fact that it's written every minachai right beside blood, we learn from here that just like the blood is permitted in benefiting, so to every minachai is permitted in benefiting. So according to Chizkiah, he says lo tochelu means do not eat, but you are allowed to benefit. So according to Chizkiah, so to which halacha, why was it juxtaposed? Meaning according to Chizkiah, you don't need this pasuk Because if right now, whenever it says lo tochal, you're not allowed to eat, you are allowed to benefit according to Chizkiah. So why is it juxtaposed ever min achai to blood? So he says, Amar lecha, Chizkiah is going to answer you, Damu di itkasher ever min achai. Dam is itkasher ever min achai. Ma ever min achai, just like ever min achai is a sur, right? So to dam min achai is a sur. So to dam min achai is also so. Meaning blood from a living person, from a living animal is also going to be a sur, right? Ve'eze ze dama kaza shanefesh yotzebo. So what is the dam which is nechshav dama nefesh and you're not allowed to eat it? Dama kaza shanefesh yotzabo. Only when you have dama kaza, when you're bloodletting, that the neshama is actually coming out from it. Which means the Gemara in Kritut says, right, that there's 4 different types of hakazat dam by an animal. Meaning there's 4 types of bloodletting in an animal. He says number 1, okay, it says number 1, betchila shotet adam me'at. Number 1, he says that the blood comes out a little bit. Afterwards, it's mekaleach bechuska. It goes very, very quick. It goes like a shower. A miklachat is a shower, but very, very strong to far away. Okay, now in these two, the blood is very, very clear. Afterwards, the third one, the blood starts coming out much slower and it becomes more black. And after death, the blood continues going out drip by drip. So the Braita there says, so there's 4 different, not categories, but like 4 different steps in bloodletting. So it says here, the Gemara there, the Braita says, what is considered dama kaza that the neshama is coming out? As long as it's going out very, very quick. Meaning that after the second step, that the blood is going out quick, the animal's already dead. Okay? So therefore, he comes...
Can you repeat that? Sorry, Rav, can you repeat that?
There are 4 steps in the process of bloodletting. The first one is that the blood is coming out, right? A little bit of blood. The second one is it comes out very quickly. It spurts out to far away. That's when the animal dies. Meaning after this step, the animal dies.
The shoulder part.
Okay? The shoulder parts, which means the animal dies. So now after this, you still have another 2 steps. That the blood starts becoming black, and then also that the blood comes out drip by drip.
Why are we learning these?
So the reason why we're learning all 4 is because the Gemara is actually saying that only by dam hakaza shanishama yotzebo, that is what's going to be considered, which is going to be asur. Okay, because the neshama is coming out of it. So why is it then that the dam was juxtaposed to every minachai to teach you that even if it's alive, it's still going to be prohibited? Okay, not only when it's going to be dead, even when it's going to be alive. When is it alive? The first 2 processes, the first 2 steps of the bloodletting. It's still alive. The blood is still... Yeah, that's karet. Isur karet. Okay?
Isur karet is like if like the animal is alive, so the 2 bleedings, the 2 first bleedings is like the animal is alive still.
Yes, the first 2, it's still alive. After the first 2, it's dead.
Oh, wow.
Still can't eat it, but it's not carrots.
Because basically what would have happened is I would have thought to say that dam min achai, that the first 2 steps is actually permitted. So the Hekesh is telling you no, that it's going to be prohibited. That's why we mean a Hekesh from every min achai.
Why would you thought it was permitted?
Because when we say that you're not allowed to eat blood, we would have thought blood only from a dead animal, not from a live animal. So therefore, it comes to teach you it's juxtaposed to every minachai that just like a limb of a human of a living animal is prohibited, so to the blood of a living animal is prohibited. So therefore, that's why the first 2 steps is also prohibited.
Wow, that's important.
Okay, so that's what we just said now. Okay, so now says the Gemara, another case, shoran iskal. Remember when you have an animal that gores, an ox that gores. What happens is you have to kill you have to do sekilah to the shore, and it kills. Sorry, and it kills. Right? Remember the ox not only did it gored and it killed. So we have to kill the animal. So it says over here, Terachman Amar, that the Torah says, right? Sakol yisakel ashor. You have to stone the shore. You have to stone the ox. Velo yachel besaro, and you're not allowed to eat its flesh. The Tanya we learned in the Braita, mimashma shneimar, from that which it says Sakol yisakel ashor, that you have to come and you have to stone the shore. En yodea, I don't know. She nevela, that it's going to be a nevela. Unevela surah b'achila, and nevela is a surah b'achila. Which means, 1 second, if you're stoning the ox, obviously you're not allowed to eat it. Why are you not allowed to eat it? Because you didn't do a proper shechita. It's a nevela. If you come and you took an ox and you stoned it to death, did you do shechita? Obviously not. So if you didn't do shechita, obviously you're not allowed to eat it. So says the Gemara, so what does it come to teach you? Lo yachel, you're not allowed to eat it. The Torah teaches you, if you slaughtered it immediately after the Gemara Din. After the verdict was given, you went and you slaughtered the animal.
Good.
You did a proper shchita.
Yeah.
Asur, you're not allowed to eat it. Eli ela b'achila, but that's only eating it. So okay, fine, you're not allowed to eat it. Banami naina, how do we know you're not allowed to benefit from it? So it says the Gemara, Tamulumar comes to teach you balashon naki. Balashon naki means my mashma. What does it mean? Shimon ben Zoma Omer, Shimon ben Zoma says, Ki adam shomer lechavero, just like a person comes and he says, Yatza ploni naki min chasav, that somebody came cleaned from his properties. When you say that, yeah, you came clean out of the deal means you came with nothing out of it. You gained nothing. So the same thing, you don't have any ana, which means sometimes you do a business deal, and after you say, no, how did it go? Well, I came clean out of it. I got cleaned out. What is cleaned out?
Vegas and
Exactly, you got cleaned out. What is cleaned out? Wallow. You have nothing. You understand? So the same thing. So when it says you're a balashor naki, the balashor is clean, it means that he has no benefit from the animal. So that's how we know that it is. So says the Gemara Tama, the reasoning why that it's a surbana is because it said balashor naki. Because if it was lo yachel, if it was from the fact that it's written you're not allowed to eat it, isur achila mashma, isur ne'el mashma. So therefore the Gemara says it's only isur achila, not isur nana. So this is a question against Rabbi Avu. Remember, Rabbi Avu, we have to continue doing this chazara. According to Shitat Rabbi Avu says that when it says lo yachel, lo tochelu, any type of connotation you're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to benefit as well. So you're not allowed to eat and you're not allowed to benefit. Here, it's not because it's written lo yachel, you're not allowed to eat it. It's only because it's written that the balashor naki, that the owner of the animal is going to become naki.
It says here that he also holds that its flesh should not be eaten, indicates a prohibition against benefit. I thought Hiskia was against Abahu.
Hiskia was against Rabbi Avu in the words lo yachel, but Hiskia agrees to Rabbi Avu in this case because it's written balashor naki. But according to Rabbi Avu, why do you need balashor naki?
What is balashor naki?
Balashor naki means that the owner of the animal is clean. Meaning you don't need that, because if it already says you're not allowed to eat it, and eating includes benefiting, so why do you have to say that the owner of the animal is clean? You don't have to say that. It's already written. You're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to eat it means you're not allowed to benefit from it. So that's why it's a question only against Rabbi Avu and not according to Chizkiah. It's not a question against Chizkiah. It's good according to Chizkiah because you needed it to say that the balashor naki, that the owner of the animal is clean. Because if not, you would have been able to benefit from it. So says the Gemara, Leolam lo yachel isur achila v'isur ana mashma. Really, be'emet, like Rabbi Avu. The Gemara answers, you could still say like Rabbi Avu. It's also isur achila and also isur ana. It's a isur on both. Ubalashor naki lanat orohu deata. When it says balashor naki, that's considered hana'at oro. Hana'at oro means that you're benefiting from the skins or the hide, whichever one you want. Ve'itzich, and you need to teach it to me. Why? Sal kadaita chamina, because I would have thought to say lo yachel besaro, ketiv besaro in orolo. It's only written you're not allowed to eat its flesh. So it says you're not allowed to eat its flesh. What about its skins? You're allowed to benefit from the skins. So Kamash Malan comes to teach you that even its hides, even its skins, it's a surbana. So that's what the Torah was trying to teach you. Meaning, be'emet like Rabbi Avu. When it says lo yachel, you're not allowed to eat and you're not allowed to benefit. So why does it say balashor naki? It has to say balashor naki to teach you you're not allowed to even benefit from the hides, from the skins. Because if not be'emet, you would have been able to. Because it only says lo yachel besaro, it's flesh, but the skins would be permitted. So Kamash Malan comes to teach you that you're not allowed to benefit even from the hides, from the skins, and that's why it says balashor naki, that the owner of the animal comes out clean. So says the Gemara ul hanach tanai, and according to the Tanaim, that they want to come and they want to make another drasha. That means they expound this pasuk balashor naki, that the owner of the animal is free from another halacha, lechetzi kofer velidme vladot, which means that a short tam that kills a human being is going to be patur even from chetzi kofer. Which means like this: when you have a shor muad, remember shor muad means an habituous gore. When you have a habituous gore, which means habitual gore, that he went and he gored 3 times and he killed a human being, so then they have to pay to the inheritors the kofer, the full amount of the value of the human being. But it says, and then he killed a man or a woman, he has to give like a redemption. Okay? Now, what about a short tam? A short tam means that he didn't gore 3 times. Now, he killed a human being. So what? The owners are going to be chayav or not? So it says over here, usually a short tam pays half, correct? So he says, however, though, there's one Tana that learns that he's patur, he's exempt even from the half. He doesn't pay anything. Because when it says Ubala Shor Naki, it means that he's not cleaned out of his properties. Clean means he's exempt. Meaning clean means that he doesn't have to pay anything.
Who teaches that?
That's one. There's one Tana. There's one Tana that he learns that when it says Balashonaki, he learns it for Chatzi Kofer and for Deme Vladot. What does it mean, Deme Vladot? If a shore comes and he gores a woman that she's pregnant and she miscarries, right? So now usually you have to pay for the value of a fetus.
Oh, he doesn't have necessarily gore. He just scares her or something, and she aborts.
Yeah, but this is talking about Adam Sheika Isha Me'uberet V'Pila V'Lada Chayav L'Shalem Dmei V'Lada.
No, you're right. It goes a pregnant woman.
Yeah. So what happens is that this is only going to be the owners are going to become exempt. This is Rashi says this. Yeah. So now the Gemara is going to say, according to this opinions, that basically they take this pasuk that says Balashon Naki, that the owner of the animal is clean. They don't learn it the way that we were learning it beforehand, which is basically to exempt. Right, to say that the owner of the animal cannot benefit completely whatsoever because he's cleaned out of his property, but rather it's that he's exempt. He's clean means that he's got a clean slate, as if to say that he doesn't have to pay the fine or pay any penalties. So that's why he's clean. So the Gemara is going to say, how do you learn that you're allowed to benefit then from the skins? So says the Gemara, nafka lehu, they learn it from the pasuk me'et besaro. When it says et besaro, hatafele besaro. Well, the word et is extra. Et is superfluous, which comes to include that which is secondary to the flesh. What's secondary to the flesh? The skins. Okay? So therefore, these Tanaim hold that from the word et, which is an extra, right? That's where they're learning that you're not allowed to benefit from meaning when it says that you're not allowed to benefit, lo yachel et besaro, you're not allowed to eat the flesh, you're not only not allowed to eat the flesh, you're not allowed to eat or benefit from the hides, from the skins. Because remember, lo yachel could mean also benefiting, according to Rabbi Yehu. Ve'idach, and according to the other one, which is basically that he says that you learn balashon naki. What does he gain from the word et? So he says et lo dari. She doesn't always learn the word et. Ketanya, we learned in the Braita, Shimon Asoni v'Amnon Nechemia Asoni, Yodoresh kol et Torah. Remember that Shimon Asoni, or some people say it's Nachman and Nechemia Asoni, they used to make a derasha on every single et in the Torah. The second that he got to the pasuk of Et Hashem Lokech Hatira, that you have to fear your God, and it says the word et, he separated. Why? The students told him, Rebbe, what's going to be with every single et that you were doresh in the Torah? He told them, his
whole his work for weeks and months.
Remember, by the way, Et Hashem Lokech Hatira is all the way in Devarim. Meaning he already expounded all the et in Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, and Bamidbar. 4 out of the 5 books of Moses. Yeah, 4 out of the 5 books. He was Doresh, he stopped. Why? I don't know how to explain this.
Take it all back.
I take it all back. So he says, right, Amrulo Tamidav, his students told him, Rebbe, what's going to be with everything? Amar Laim, he told him, just like I received a reward on making Doresh, on the derashot on every single one, I'm going to receive a reward on the separated, right? So he says until Rabbi Akiva came and he said, you have to fear your God. This comes to include Tamidei Chachamim, which means that the Tamidei Chachamim are basically the same level as God. You have to actually come and you have to fear them. That's what it's coming to include. So right, and there's a whole Dvar Torah. I still remember until today
his students
that Rabbi Akiva came. And he was the only one that was able to do it, because at the beginning, he was the one that used to say, Ma'aretz, give me a Tamil Chacham, and I'm going to bite him like a donkey, that I'm going to break his bones like a donkey. Because Rabbi Akiva hated the Tamidei Chachamim so much when he was an Ma'aretz. So only Rabbi Akiva himself, that he hated so much, and then afterwards he saw the truth, and he himself became a Tamil Chacham, he realized, no, this is coming to include the Tamidei Chachamim. You have to actually come, and you have to actually give them the respect, the fear, just like you have the fear of God. Okay, so that's why it says the et. Not every single rabbi, they always expounded the words et. So because of that, you don't have a question. So says the Gemara, you have orla. What do you mean by orla? It says by orla over here, what happens? It says by orla, the Rahman Amar, the Torah comes and the Torah says, right? Arelim lo yachel. What does it mean, arelim lo yachel? You're not allowed to eat the orla. Orla is basically the first 3 years of the fruits of the tree. You're not allowed to benefit from it. The Tanya we learned in a Braita. It says, when you're going to come to the land and you're going to plant a food tree, so the first 3 years is arelim, is orla. You're not only not allowed to eat it, but how do you know you're not allowed to benefit from it? You're not allowed to use the fruits, to use it for coloring, or lo yalik bo taner, you're not allowed to use it as lighting a candles, like as fuel. Tamulumar comes to teach you, you're not allowed to benefit from it at all. Any type of a benefiting. So you're not allowed to benefit whatsoever. Tama, the reasoning why the Torah said that you're not allowed to benefit from it. But if not, I would have thought to say Yisura Chila Mashma, Yisura Na Lo Mashma, that it's only Yisura Chila, but not Yisura Na, which means whether it was for Chizkiah or for the Biavhu, when it says Lo Yachel, it's also Yisura Na. So basically, it's question on both of them, right? Because when it says Varaltem or Lato Arelim Lo Yachel, so it says over here, if it wasn't for the fact that it was written that, I would have had a Vahavamina that the Lo Yachel means that it's only Yisura Achila, but not Yisura Na. So it says over here, Leolam Lo Yachel Mashma Ben Yisura Achila Ben Yisura Na. He says, no, really, Be'emet, it's when it says over here Lo Yachel, it means that you're not allowed to eat and you're not allowed to benefit. It's different by Ola Dichtiv. Yelachem arelim. It's going to be for you. And therefore you need it. What does that mean? I would have thought to say, since it's written for you, it should be yours, and you're allowed to benefit from it. Meaning, since it says it's for you, it's for you, this is for you, Orla. So the word for you means you're allowed to benefit from it. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that you're not allowed to benefit from it. And that's why it's a lo yachem. So says the Gemara, but now that it's written these psukim to prohibit Orla, why do I need to write lachem then? You're misleading. You're writing a word which I could misinterpret to mean that you're allowed to benefit from it. So why am I writing it? So it says to add on to that which we said, like in a braita. Lachem lerabot natua. Lachem comes to include anything which is going to be planted. For example, a tree which is planted lerabim to the public, right? Rabbi Yehuda says leotzi et natua lerabim, to come to exclude it, which means that there's going to be a machloket. Is there an isur of orla to a tree which was planted for the public, the general public, or not? So that's what we're saying now. So according to the first shita, which is Tanakama says lachem comes to include natua larabim, to the public, for the tzorech harabim. Okay, that's what Rashi says. Okay, and then it says here, Rabbi Yehuda comes and says no, it's come to exclude it. My Tama, the Tanakama, what's the reasoning of Tanakama? We're on Kav Gimel Amud Aleph, 23a1. We're just going to finish the little part. My Tama, the Tanakama, what's the reasoning of Tanakama? Tichtiv, as it's written, untatem liyachid mashma. When it says untatem, that you're going to plant, it's mashma to an individual. That's what you could deduce it from there. Larabim lo mashma, it's not mashma that it's going on everybody. Katav rachmana lachem, that's why the Torah wrote lachem, le'avi et ha'yedna to larabim. So therefore it comes to include, even if it's going to be planted for everybody. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, untatem is for everyone. Untatem is whether for an individual or for the public, and lachem is whether for an individual or for a public. So it's a ribuy achar ribuy. It's an inclusion after another inclusion. Whenever you have an inclusion after another inclusion, it becomes a negative. Meaning it's like, sometimes like a double negative becomes a positive, the same thing. A double positive becomes a negative. So therefore, when you have an inclusion after another inclusion, it's coming to exclude. What's it coming to exclude? A tree which is planted for the public.
This is one of the ways we understand Torah. We say, the 13 ways.
No, it's not. Well, it's a little bit, but it's not exactly that. These are the other rules. Yes, something very similar, but not exactly. Okay. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Shavua tov.
Thank you very much. Hazak Baruch.